What's up, you guys? It's Cody. Homeownership right now is at an all-time low. It seems that you've got report after report. Every single news agency is out there reporting on how homeownership for millennials is at an all-time low and nowhere near the levels that it used to be for the generations that came before us, namely the Gen Xers and baby boomers. And it's looking pretty dire. For instance, you've got this article here that says in 2019, millennials with an average age of 31 own just 4% of real estate value across the nation. This is a stark contrast to the baby boomers in 1990 with a median age of 35 who owned nearly 1/3 of American real estate by value. Or you've got this table here that shows homeownership at age 25 to 34. For millennials, it's just 37%, whereas for Gen Xers, you were at 45.4% and baby boomers 45%. It's pretty obvious that homeownership for millennials is down, and it's because most of them are saying they can't afford to buy a home, they can't afford the down payment, or they can't qualify for a mortgage. There's also other statistics that are helping to add to these low numbers, which include delaying marriage and high student debt. It's been said time and time again that real estate is absolutely one of the best investments that you can make, especially for just your average person. Anybody can invest in real estate, and if they hold that piece of property long enough, there's a very, very high likelihood that the value of that property is going to go up and it's going to increase the net worth of the person who owns that. And getting started with real estate can be hard to do, but once you're in, it's actually very similar to renting. So as you know, I'm a huge believer in real estate, so it's my goal here on this video to give you a couple of different ideas and a few different perspectives of how to look at this process so that you can become a homeowner, invest in real estate, and continue to grow your net worth. So there's a couple things I want to mention before we jump into this because I think it's relevant to this discussion. You know, we as individuals are living in the best of times that have ever existed. Everything that we have comes easier than it has 100, 500, or even 1,000 years ago. You've got water instantly, you've got heat instantly, you've got cooling instantly, you've got a car that can take you anywhere. Everything that we have in our lives is as good as it has ever been for the human race. If you look at any of the older houses in your city or neighborhood, you're going to find that a lot of these are significantly smaller than today's standard. You'll find that these homes have smaller bedrooms, smaller living spaces. A lot of them don't have garages. The kitchens and bathrooms are smaller, and it's just really cut up. You don't get that open concept that everybody loves today. The reason those things have changed is because we now have the luxury to live in a giant home. The cost of construction relative to that has gotten cheaper, so you can build a bigger home for cheaper than it was back then, and it's easier for the laborers to do that. This means that we get 3,000, 4,000, even 5,000 square foot homes that are way more than most of us need. And I think this trickles down to renters and first-time home buyers who are consistently looking for more and more space that they really don't need. Now, I'm not asking you to give up the luxury of something that you really enjoy or having that extra space that you need. I'm all about living the best life possible, but you have to be willing to make some sacrifices in the beginning in order to get to that next step. Again, I'm a millennial. When you look back to the types of homes that our parents and grandparents had, they started off with something really small and then built their way up to a bigger and bigger home where they raised the family, including us kids. Now, I think that a lot of people my age want to jump directly into something like mom and dad have, and that's just not realistic. So when it comes to getting started with real estate, I would say that figuring out exactly what you need and what you don't need is the most important step. You need to get crystal clear on how big of a home you need, how close you need to live to work, what features you need, and what features you're willing to give up. You need to figure out if you can make sacrifices on location or size and not just go for something that you would like to have, but something that you actually need. And the other thing that I should mention at this point is that you may need to look into house hacking. House hacking is absolutely hands down the best way to get started investing in real estate, especially if you're looking at this from an investment standpoint. And if you've been watching my channel, you know that I'm a huge believer in house hacking. It's absolutely the best way to get started. It's how I got started, and I've done it in numerous homes, and I'm still doing it today. The reason for that is because it's so powerful and it's such a great way to earn extra income and reduce your living expenses. Once you have a good idea of what it is that you actually need in a home, it's time to set a goal and start taking action on that goal. The first step to this is to talk to an actual mortgage broker or a loan officer. You can find these people at banks or credit unions or your local mortgage company. Now, if you're going to be buying a home in the next 3 to 6 months, then it probably does matter who you talk to. But if you're not going to be buying for at least 6 months, then it really doesn't matter who you talk to. I would actually recommend getting in touch with a mortgage broker because they're generally, from my experience, a little bit more knowledgeable about the process, and they can give you a better idea of where you are and where you need to go. I know that most people put this off because they worry about getting their credit pulled, or they're worried about what the loan officer is going to say, or that they won't get qualified, and that's not the point here. Getting a hard check on your credit is going to be peanuts compared to being able to get started with real estate investing. I have had my credit pulled numerous times, and every single time I don't even think about it because I know that it's just the means to the end to get what I actually want, which is to invest in another real estate property. I promise, guys, don't worry about this credit check. It's going to fall off in a couple of years anyway, and it's just the means to the end to actually get you started investing in real estate. The reason why you need to go and check with a mortgage broker about where you are is because you need to know where you're starting from in order to know where you're going. By knowing where you're starting, you can actually put steps into place and actually take action on those steps to get you one step closer to qualifying for a mortgage and being able to afford that mortgage and afford a down payment and afford the home that you actually end up buying. A lot of times you can move money around or pay stuff off to get you in a better spot financially so that you can actually get qualified for a mortgage. Sometimes this involves things like refinancing your car. When you go to the bank and you ask for a mortgage, what they're really looking at is what is your monthly income and what are your monthly expenses that are reporting on credit. So they really don't care how much you spend on groceries or entertainment. That stuff doesn't get reported on your credit. They're really interested on what are your monthly expenses that you have to pay every single month. This includes stuff like student loan debt, your future mortgage, cars, personal loans, or anything of the like. So when it comes to refinancing a car, they don't really care if you only owe $1,000 on the car. What they're really concerned about is what is that monthly payment that you're making. If you do only owe $1,000, you can either pay that off and just get rid of it entirely, or you can refinance that amount to lower your payment, and that's what the bank is going to look at. So if you can drop your payment from $500 a month to $200 a month, that gives you another $300 a month of potential mortgage that you could afford. There's also other things that you can do on the income side, which includes earning a little bit more money by going to your employer and asking for a raise, or maybe just claiming a little bit less on your taxes. You have to look at your situation personally because everybody's going to be in a different spot. So you really need to know where you're at and where you're going and how to make those strategic moves to be able to move money around, refinance or pay off loans if you need to, and then get qualified for that mortgage. You know, there's a number of things that affect your credit score. So knowing how many accounts you have open, how long they've been open, what the total usage of those accounts is, those are all things that you can make changes to increase your score over the long term. Now, this isn't going to be a quick fix in most cases, but if you know that you only have a couple of accounts open and you're not going to be buying a home for another year or maybe 2 years, it might be beneficial to go and open another account or call the credit card company and ask for a credit limit raise so that you can increase your credit score. Because banks are looking at your credit score, they want to know that they're going to get paid back. So when you've got a higher credit score, they're going to have more loan options for you, they're going to give you a better interest rate, and they're going to have lower closing costs. The other important thing I'd mention on this topic is that you need to look at all of your options under each of the different loan categories. Your two major ones are going to be the FHA loans and conventional loans. It's important to look at these individually because there can be different types of loans under these two categories, and one may work better for you while another one might not work so well. Depending on what type of loan you get, you're going to have differences in how much mortgage insurance you pay, what your interest rate is, what your closing costs are. When you do get a little bit closer to being ready to buy a home, it's important that you go and look around at different local programs with different banks. Now, I said earlier that it doesn't really matter who you talk to up front. If you're just trying to figure out what your credit score is and you just want to know where you're at so you can put some steps in place to increase your financial profile, that's true. It doesn't really matter at that point. But once you get closer to being ready to actually buy a home, it is going to matter who you go and talk to. I'd recommend looking around at different banks and credit unions, even mortgage brokers, to see who has the best program and what is going to be the most flexible for you in your situation. This can be a little bit of a daunting task, so don't be afraid to ask a realtor for a couple of recommendations. If you're looking at some different real estate investing options, like maybe you want to house hack or you want to buy something that's a multifamily, like a duplex or a fourplex, I definitely recommend getting in touch with a realtor and a mortgage broker who are familiar with these strategies and who do them themselves or have helped other clients do them in the past. There's a lot of different ways to move money around, and these subjects can get a little bit touchy when it comes to getting qualified with the bank and making sure that everything goes smoothly. So you want to make sure that you've got somebody on your side who knows what you're trying to do. So as I mentioned, house hacking is my favorite way to get started with real estate investing. It's been at the center of my investing strategy to do this, to continue to add rental properties to my portfolio and continue to grow that portfolio and passive income. I mean, think of it. If you can buy a house and rent out 50% of it and cut your living expenses by 50%, you're in a way better position. If you're currently spending 40 to 50% of your monthly income on rent, and you can drop that number to, let's say, 20 to 25%, that's a lot of money. That could be, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for most people that they can then go and spend on other things. Let's say that you can buy a duplex and live in one side and then rent out the other side while that tenant pays your mortgage. You're in an absolutely phenomenal place, and it couldn't get any better than that. If you can get to a spot where you're living for very little or even living for free, you're gonna be so far ahead, and you're gonna be able to put additional money away, and you can just repeat this process over and over. Although this is my favorite way to get started, it's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody's going to have the ability to do house hacking. It may not work in your area, or it may not be something that you're interested in. Investing in real estate isn't for everybody. Some people just want to have their own home and then continue to invest in the stock market or make other investments. And that's totally fine. Just figure out what works for you, what sacrifices you're willing to make, and what sacrifices you're not willing to make. The previous steps that I mentioned about talking to a mortgage broker, finding out what your credit score is, setting a goal, and taking action on that goal are going to be absolutely crucial no matter what you choose to do. So guys, that wraps up the video here. If you liked this content, give me a thumbs up here on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. If you want to learn more about investing in real estate and all things personal finance, passive income, and entrepreneurship, follow me on Instagram at @UtahRealEstate_, and I'll see you in the next one.